Okay. I think we're ready to get started. Ooh, look, that's loud. Good morning. Good morning, everybody, and to our streamers, good morning. Do we have anybody on the call? Thank you for coming. We have kind of a sparse house. Maybe it'll fill up a little bit more as our meeting goes, but I know a lot of us are battling colds, and some of us have family or friends that are impacted by the fire. And so to those of you that have made it in, thank you, and we appreciate your attendance. Those of you who are streaming, we're going to do our best to make sure the questions are heard. I've got trusty colleagues who are going to run microphones around, because a lot of the purpose of this is to collect information for our colleagues here that will introduce themselves in order to better serve our graduate students. Is there a chat function where people who are streaming can write? Okay, so our colleagues over here will inform us when there's information or questions from our streaming audience. So I'm just going to turn it over. I'm going to go to the back, but I wanted to leave the table with Kaylee Curtis, who is a doctoral student in the psychology department, and she's going to talk to you about CalFresh and their programs. Thank you for coming.
Okay. Sounds like little kids. Sometimes it's like elementary school. Yeah.
Oh.
That's what it sounds like.
So yes, there is a program.
Future Cal protesters.
Well, that's friendlier than other alternatives. My name's Kaylee. I'm a grad student in the psych department, and I was just at a CalFresh organizing meeting, and I wanted to pass on the word. There'll be CalFresh clinics happening a few times throughout the semester, but more pressing, there's one coming up on Friday, October 20th, and there's going to be a session for grad students only. There's been some concern that grad students don't want to sign up along with undergrads in case they're teaching them and just for privacy reasons. So at 2:45 p.m. on Friday, October 20th, there will be a CalFresh eligibility session.
Can you explain what is CalFresh?
CalFresh is food stamps. Okay. So a lot of grad students, it turns out, probably will qualify for food assistance. It hasn't been done before, and Berkeley is the kind of flagship UC campus trying it out. So it's a bit of a test case, but we just met with workers from the Alameda County Food Bank, and they sound optimistic that grad students will often qualify. And they'll have workers here in person to help people individually with their applications. And hopefully the more grad students who start submitting, the more we'll learn about the process and who's eligible and who's not. And it could be a great source of assistance for food for many grad students.
Where's the meeting?
The meeting will be in the Multicultural Center in MLK, right across the way. Grad student only session again at 2:45 p.m. And they're shooting to have 35 grad students there. That would be a full house for them. And they can register online. If you go to basicneeds.berkeley.edu, basicneeds.berkeley.edu, you'll see a button for CalFresh, and it's just an online Google form. They put in their information, and the first 35 grad students who sign up will get into this free clinic. The only requirement is that they bring a laptop, so they have some way to fill out the application as they're there. Yeah? Yes, so October 20th is a special super clinic. Oh yeah, sorry, the question was, what if they can't make it on Friday, October 20th? That is a super clinic, so it's trying to get 35 people in a room at one time, which is more than their usual capacity. But if you visit that website, basicneeds.berkeley.edu, you'll see dates of future clinics. They're just smaller and might not have the same staff availability from the Alameda County Food Bank. So this is a great opportunity to try and get more one-on-one help. But there will be other opportunities.
Hi, I'm Tatiana Georgievich. I work at Berkeley International Office, and I was just curious if you guys got any feedback whether international students would be eligible for the CalFresh.
I believe there are citizenship and residency requirements. I'm not sure what the residency requirements are. Luckily, that's why the county food bank workers will be there. They have the answers to a lot of these questions. And I know it's frustrating to go and then get told that you're not eligible, but hopefully by doing this bigger super clinic with 35 people, we'll get a lot of these questions answered, and then we'll be able to distribute information back to you about who's eligible and who's not. It's just that no UC campus has done this before, so a lot of these questions aren't even known by the program itself, by food stamps, by CalFresh itself. So we're trying to figure it out as we go. One interesting thing is that there are income requirements, but if any of your students get any income from the federal government, such as NSF, any federal money does not count as income. So that would mean that they would not have to report that as income, which might make them eligible. Also, any money given as tuition for doctoral students does not count as income. It's only money that winds up in the student's bank account, federal government, which will make more people eligible. Oh. That's an excellent question. Yeah. Okay. Right. Those are great questions. I was at the brainstorming meeting where we had the food bank county workers there and people from Berkeley, like Ruben, who works in the food bank there. And what we were managed to figure out in that meeting was that people who receive NSF money, they don't have to report that because they consider it from the federal government. I'm not sure about GSR money if it comes from the federal government but gets funneled somewhere else. That would be a great question. I would still send GSR students to this clinic because the people running the clinic will have a lot more of the individual information. And again, it's frustrating not knowing at the outset who to send, if they'll be eligible, but hopefully we'll get a lot of these questions answered the first time around, and future clinics will be a lot more streamlined for students going in. Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, turning mine on now. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great. All right, so thank you for having me. My name is Claudia Villacaña, and I manage the Bears for Financial Success program. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar, but we are a financial wellness program that is housed in the Financial Aid and Scholarships Office. So we it's a peer-to-peer program, so we have students who teach other students about money management. So we have workshops and one-on-one appointments that cover things like budgeting, savings, credit cards, managing debt, student loans, things like that. So as of right now, I mean, we are open for undergraduates and graduate students, but we really are struggling to target graduate students. And so I'm here to kind of get some feedback on the best ways to do that. I will give you a little bit of background about the things that we've already done with graduate students. So last year, I partnered with Larissa in the graduate division to kind of brainstorm what would be the best topics, what do graduate students really need to know about, what are they interested in learning, because we know that there are a lot of grad students, there's a need for this and they're asking for this. It's just how can we fill that need and how can we reach them? We do have students that come in for one-on-one appointments. We're located in 211 Sproul Hall. So we have had a handful of graduate students who've come in. Sometimes they'll talk to our peers. It's all undergraduate at the moment, but sometimes they request to talk to me, and that's absolutely fine. But what we did last year was we decided to host a series of workshops based on what we thought. Got some feedback from the graduate assembly as well in terms of what topics we needed to cover. So we did one on student loan repayment, one on investing, retirement, salary and benefits negotiation, and another one that we meant to do but we didn't get to do it was taxes, because it was going to be in April, and our tax guy was like, I cannot come in April, which is completely understandable. So obviously that was our fault for not figuring out the timing for that. So those are the things that we put on for graduate students. We had very low attendance. It was hosted in 211 Sproul Hall. And so the idea we're having now is that maybe we need to be somewhere in spaces where graduate students are, meet them where they're at. And Tyler will talk a little bit more about kind of his vision for moving forward. But I am here to ask all of you for your input into how we can best reach students and topics that you find that students are struggling with in terms of money management. We don't do things really related to financial aid counseling, but we can talk about things like student loan repayment and understanding kind of the parameters of student loans. So I guess at this point, if anybody has any ideas right now or things that you've talked to your students about, that would be helpful.
And we should say that this will be, we're thinking about having this at group levels, so even if it's something that you think is specific to your department or department similar to you, that's good feedback for us to have.
Hi, I'm, is it good or is it gone off? Yeah. Okay. So I'm Dee from the Relations Studies Department. The question that comes up very frequently is about taxes.
Yep.
Grad students really don't know how to deal with their taxes, especially if they're receiving any kind of aid from the university. I don't know how to manage that. I send them to the tax teams. I tell them to try and get free tax help and things like that. But something that can get out there to give them more information about what the resources on this campus are, to assist them with that, because most of them are not going to go to a tax lawyer or HR law or any of that. They don't know how to do that. They don't even know how their income is being affected or how it's being taxed. Many of them don't know what a 1098 form is, for example. So that's one really important thing. I can send them emails, but as we all know in this room, the more emails you send to your grad students, the less attention they pay to the important ones. So I try not to bombard them with that. The other thing is that many of my student employees don't really understand their paychecks, their pay statements. Many of them don't know where to even see their pay statement and to see what's being taken out for retirement or Social Security or anything like that. So some discussion of a student employee's, salary breakdown might be helpful to one of your clinics or something like that.
Thank you. Yeah, helpful. We had.
Sorry about that.
So I think in-person workshops are great, but I also think online tools would be really helpful. And if you could leverage, I mean, you don't have to, create them yourself. If you could leverage tools that are already online that work, even just having an online budgeting tool, investment resources, things that they could easily navigate, and then things that are particular to UC Berkeley, like Dee mentioned, the 98T, what is it, how to review it. So a lot of the things that you're probably already doing in the workshops, putting them online, making them as tools, that way they could do it on their time.
So I will say that, thank you for that, that we are in the process of purchasing an online financial literacy tool with making sure that it will serve graduate students and having some of those topics that are really important to them, because we know that we can't reach everybody in person. So we are in the process of that with keeping graduate students in mind. So, and right now we do have some tools on our website, links and things like that. You can always, as of right now, send them to our website. We do have a specific link for tools for graduate students on there. So if anybody's ever wondering where they can find those resources, you can direct them to our website. We're through the financial aid website under financial literacy.
Can you give us a website link?
Yeah, so it's financialaid.berkeley.edu/BFFS.
That was actually my question. You guys had mentioned that you had really low turnout at your meetings. I've been a student services advisor for 12 years, and I've been there for financial success program. And that's not a criticism, it's just that
Yeah.
that information is not getting to us to filter to our students. I don't get announcements about it. I don't know where
Yeah.
it is or where to direct people.
So,
I would love to, because I think the financial stress is one of the biggest problems on campus.
Yeah, and so definitely that's part of the reason why I'm here is to let everyone know that there's resources available. The workshops, we did graduate-specific workshops in the spring of last year, and I believe we did some promotion through grad division and whatever Larissa did. She's not here right now, but Larissa is the one who, has contacts with everyone, and so you all know Larissa, yeah. So I'm not exactly sure how she promoted it, but I know she put it in whatever newsletter she sends out and did some outreach that way. So I'm not exactly sure how it went out, but if
Maybe it was in a newsletter that I didn't open or something.
possibly. And like you said, everyone gets a lot of emails, and a lot of it is this newsletter, and you don't really read it and all of that. But if there's another way that's the best to reach out to you all, I don't know if you have some sort of listserv or something like that, I would be happy to be able to give that information to you directly. I don't know.
So I just want to echo the last two comments about the taxes being a huge issue, and then also online tools are really useful for the students, and common definitions. Most of the time I'm trying to explain to them what a fee remission is and what the difference between a salary and a stipend is. So I've been doing that, but information like that is really useful to them. And on the taxes, with the tax clinics, a lot of times it's people wanting to help them file, and they usually don't need help filing. They need help with weird specific questions they have about some sort of money they received, and they don't know how to deal with it, and if money's been taken out or if it hasn't, if they need to report it. And then also help figuring out their 1090 and what all the different numbers mean. Those, and usually I'm able to help them. I've been able to help match what that is, but they would I'm sure they'd like to not have to deal with me about it. And then I think having a tax workshop at orientation would be really useful, so that domestic students know that their stipends aren't taxed, or it's stuff like that, information about how hey, you're about to receive money in a way you've probably never received money before. How do this is how you should deal with it, because we're not supposed to do that. So I think that'd be helpful for them.
Good idea. Okay. Yeah.
Additionally, I was just wondering, I know you had stated that you hold workshops. Would you have representatives available to come out to specific departments and speak, or if we hold a department orientation every year, if we could have a speaker, that would be helpful. Just knowing, so the students can know the resource, so they can then seek you guys out. That would be helpful, and I think, at least speaking for my own department, I would ask you to come and represent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's definitely the way forward, that we realized having the workshops here was not really that productive. And so Tyler has some ideas about how to go about that as well. But
Actually, she definitely asked a question I was originally going to ask. I think that I second that, though, that having someone come in and speak at the orientations and also departmental workshops, Eric and to do that sort of larger department, I think we would have decent turnout. And then my second question is, obviously I can refer them to your webpage if they have financial literacy questions. But sometimes questions are very specific. Is there a email address for your department that I could refer them to if they email me about some odd questions?
yeah, so we do have an email address. It's on our website, and it's also just bffs@berkeley.edu. So they can definitely email us. It's bffs. B as in boy, so Bear is for financial success, but just BFFS at berkeley.edu. That's our email address. They can also schedule an appointment online if they would like to. They can also drop into our office hours 10 to 2, Monday through Friday.
And where are you located?
In 211 Sprout Hall. Yeah, and we definitely have had graduate students come in. I had a few that came right at the beginning of the year to say, here's what I have with my stipend for the semester. How do I allocate this so I don't run out of money by the end of this semester? That is a perfect use of an appointment. So,
Could I ask you to identify what department you're into? like the previous speaker, if you wanted people to come.
Political science.
Okay. Thanks.
Have you considered having a workshop at the new grad student orientation? It happens in August, at the very beginning, for all new incoming grad students.
What did we did, was it the basic needs? It was just the basic needs that we were a part of, I think. So we had a workshop to talk to students about all of the basic needs resources that are available, and we were part of that.
Yeah, it wasn't super well attended. I think students were unsure. There were probably some competing things around the same time that seemed to be more advantageous for their financial well-being, and I think they would often go to those unless they were really concerned about their basic needs, so sort of more basic needs, critical insecurity. But I would consider doing something at the graduate student orientation.
Something more specific.
Understanding what funding you're getting and how to read all of that.
We do that with,
As they come in.
yeah, we do that with financial aid, right? Do we still have?
Don't really apply to financially because they get
Right.
from the department.
There's like Andrea's, there's still a workshop that's, it's part Andrea, part financial aid to talk about the different funding sources, is that right?
No,
Or we used to do that. So I don't know.
Yes, we have a financial aid workshop. We have a fellowships workshop, which I put on every year until this last year Solomon started doing it.
Okay.
So these are definitely covered. I believe we even did a tax workshop, if not this year, then in the last couple years,
Okay.
that I was going to say from listening in the back, that's not when students are that interested and that concerned about their taxes. I think if you could get out to the departments where they pay a little, it's more mandatory. NGSO is not mandatory. We get about 700 of the 3,400 entering students. So even if we get all 700 to come, that's still a fraction of our student audience. So the ideas I'm hearing about going out to the departments, I think, are going to be far more fruitful because grad students tend to listen when they're in their home departments. And then you can get down to the brass tacks about what kind of support is taking place in that department. Even though I do a 90-minute presentation on fellowships, it's really hard to do because all of the questions are so disparate and different based on a particular student's package. So the more you can do out in the departments, the more I think you'll get the kind of success. But just to follow up with Belen's question, yes, we do these topics.
Hi, I'm with Berkeley International Office, and just a couple of ideas. So our office administers some limited financial aid for international students. We have a loan program and need-based aid and parent grants. So there could be some opportunity for collaboration, like in a post-aid or exit counseling type of thing, because those students are continuing and will still have some financial need in the future, possibly. Another theme that comes up with graduate students is family resources and budgeting for the family. So I could see that being helpful.
Just a follow-up question. Do you feel like you are able to provide adequate workshops for international students, or do you think there's still more that needs to be done, like an international student-specific workshop, for example?
So we don't do a lot of like financial literacy type of workshops. I know on the undergraduate side, we try to leverage other resources on campus like you guys, but we aren't doing a lot there for graduate students. So I could see it being helpful. We do have a lot of students come to us to talk about financial aid and need because they really don't, a lot of times they might not have anywhere else to go, just because we might be their first point of contact who they think of to meet with. So it would be great if we had other resources to point them to.
Okay, thanks.
Actually, that's my question as well, in that we have a lot of international students who get funding, so they don't know about tax treaties and how to do the glacier and how to get the money back that's initially taken out of their award for taxes. They don't know if they can get it back in April or whenever they're supposed to do their taxes. So there's a whole international student aspect that needs to be dealt with in taxes as well.
I should add that is the one area where we do offer some resources. So we have tax webinars and workshops around tax filing time. Yeah.
Oh, who does those? Is that somebody in your office that does those?
A couple people in our office who are kind of who focus on taxes. We're not tax advisors, but we try to collect information and resources. We have a free tax filing software for international students, and we send out emails to remind them of their requirements.
Great. And just a clarification in terms of some of these more advanced topics like taxes and investing, we don't do those in-house. We would get somebody else to come and do them because we're not tax experts or investing experts. So keeping that in mind, that if a graduate student has a tax question, they wouldn't be able to come in and have an appointment with us about that because unfortunately we don't know as much about that and wouldn't want to give that advice. So yeah, thanks.
I would actually be interested too in like a workshop for GSAOs on like how, because I mean, I understand that, even if you bring people into the department, a lot of times their students still won't go, or they just have a conflict and aren't able to, and so they'll still end up coming to me and other, people, and well, they would still end up coming to me anyways, and if I do the best I can and tell them my limitations, but if there was a way, if there's some sort of best practices for GSAOs on how to talk about these things and resources, confirmed resources we can go to refer students, that would be super helpful. Because right now, when someone had a T9 or an issue with one of their tax forms, I just found someone in billing and payment that will help me. That I've been cautiously calling her. Sorry, can't tell you guys. And so, I don't want to. I can't. You have to be careful with those relationships. So, if we had if we had stuff like that, that'd be super helpful, and it would probably relieve a lot of the burden on you too.
Okay. Yeah. Great.
And actually, our next question for you after we're done with this round will be sort of sharing what you do that you think would be good for other departments to do. So we'll have a little bit of that session today.
I'm dying to know that contact. But I just wanted to also second whoever said something about parents. I think that would be a really great workshop. I have a lot of parents in my grad student charges, and some of them who have never been a parent before and have never been a parent before as a grad student, they really don't even know where to begin, and they don't know, for example, that that student health insurance is going to be blah, blah, blah amount per dependent in their family. So they are often quite floored when they hear the finances. So any sort of budgeting tips, any resources that you can pass on to them would be really helpful. Others have, already have children and have worked out budgets when they get here, and then one of them just recently was dropped from the state financial aid for her parent because she was told she makes too much. So there are changes that are happening also. I don't know how quickly you guys can keep abreast of that, but I think the student parents have a lot of need, and the families in general, for guidance, resources, workshops, the kind of thing that you're talking about.
Great, thanks. One more thing that I'm considering, or something that I think is moving forward, is to hire a graduate student peer. So all of our peers are undergraduates right now. So I think what would be helpful is to have a graduate student peer who could do more specific outreach and be kind of in the departments. And one thought that I have is to have office hours within the different departments instead of just workshops, because I do find that when students meet one-on-one with a peer, it's really pretty impactful. And so I just kind of wanted your thoughts and whether or not that would be supported in the departments to actually have a space for them, or would that be better to still have them here in our space? Any thoughts about that? Yeah, good. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Oh, great. Okay. Yeah.
Can you wait for the mic?
Oh, sure.
Would you be providing training to the peer advisor?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah.
So I'm Eric, I'm from MCB, and I do all the financial stuff for my students. So in your comment about peer-to-peer, I think that graduate students, by the time they get to graduate school, since they've been through undergraduate, they have a little experience of being in an institution, college, and getting aid and working out. I think they're a little bit brighter than we're giving them credit for. So I think they've kind of worked it out. This year, what I did something very different. This year, I emailed all of my incoming graduate students beforehand and gave them a heads up of what their funding was going to be like for the upcoming year, because there was different scenarios. We had heard from previous class years that they didn't know what they were going to get when they came in. So I gave them a heads up of, this is what we're going to be doing for you. This is what the timing of your payments is going to be. This is the amount you should be expecting. And so we kind of like gave them advance notice. The other thing we did differently this year is that we did, Sarah coordinated with the ASUC Tax Assistance Office and had someone come down to our department and give a workshop. It was about an hour and a half. She gave a lecture. She had a PowerPoint presentation. So and it was very informative. And it was something I think might be combined with a literacy workshop on the same day. I think it also, this is something that could happen near the beginning of the year. Our graduate students go through 3 full days of orientation. And so by the end of those 3 days, they're pretty talked out. So I would probably suggest if you're going to do a combined thing with tax assistance and literacy, that maybe you do it the week after orientation. Give them, let them soak in what we've already told them, and then do something a little bit later on in the semester.
So anything else you think your students need to hear from a financial perspective? I think we've heard about taxes and budgeting and maybe some specific student groups. What do students come to you and sort of complain about if I don't know how to do this? Okay, if you fix that, well,
I don't know
you're the best.
how helpful we would be with that. But
one possible reason some grad students do not come to your office is because they're not in a position or not aware, or they're simply not in the position to have a conversation with you because they don't have enough money to be managing. It's just all going to basic needs, and they're doing the best they can, of course, with buying their groceries and paying their rent, and it's not like they have any disposable income, to talk about investments or financial management.
yeah, and I think, most of what we talk about in the appointments is just budgeting and making sure that people, and I know that a lot of students who have very little are pretty good about where they allocate their money, but if they just want something set or a little bit of guidance, that's what we do as well. So it doesn't have to be anything more complicated than that. Thank you. Yeah.
Do you guys offer any resources on just how to find low-cost items? So, for example, low-cost housing, where you can get resources for food assistance and things like that, because I think that's part of it with just not having a lot of money and how they can meet their basic needs at the lowest cost.
Yeah, and I think, so we train all of our peers to know all of those resources, and then students tend to know kind of where the best place is to get the best deals, and so all of our students are pretty aware of all of that stuff. And so I think, especially if we had a graduate student peer and they had those experiences, that would be a good thing for them to know and to kind of disseminate that information too. Yes.
And I think the Basic Needs website that Kaylee shared earlier also has a lot of that information.
Yes. Good. Yes.
So this is really, I guess, case by case, and I don't have many of these cases. But every time I have to research this, it seems to be spread out through multiple websites on the university, and that is finances for students who, for like medical reasons, need to withdraw, or contemplating taking a leave of absence. And in my conversations with them, obviously I could talk about academics, their time and degree, you know, the withdrawal process, whether it's medical or not, personal. But there's financial implications to those decisions, right? And I usually have to take on those conversations, and I look on different websites to see like what resources there are, like how long the medical go for, what happens thereafter. So I think for students, the academic and the financial piece, it's not quite clear, or they assume they're still going to get a stipend if they withdraw, and that's not the case. Or if they want to take an internship, right, and leave, because there is really no status with the graduate division to do an intern, like a leave of absence status, where, you know, where they're still seen as a, you know, it's, the rules are just kind of murky there. And yes, we work case to case on that, and we try to cover those bases. But I think maybe, and it's hard to kind of put a workshop, like, what if you're contemplating such and such? I don't know, like something, it's more, I don't even know how to say this, but I think many of us, those are the complicated cases that maybe we see, that we don't have a direct answer. So having some kind of resource in terms of the financial implications of when you're not a student, right? Or contemplating, you know, leaving, and always talk to your academic department about that, right? So that they know the full spectrum before making a decision, you know, to withdraw. Or
have you all as a group, the GSAOs, had a training from anyone about withdrawals and how that financial implications of that? Okay. Because it's obviously a little bit different with grads and undergrads. Would that be something that would be helpful, that you all could have that training and then know where to go? I'm not sure who would facilitate that, but I can look into it if that's helpful.
some of the information is online, like in terms of health insurance and how long that goes.
Yeah.
But, the other piece is it could be very blurry, like if a faculty member is supporting a student, right, and the student then doesn't want to formally leave, but there's, you know, as a GSR, you don't have sick pay, right? So what if a student for like 6 or 7 or 8 weeks is out of the lab? You know, then there's a mediation of, do we pay the student? Do we not pay the student? Do we do it in good faith? But then the PI is concerned about reporting on that. And I mean, typically we're able to navigate that, but as you can see, that can cause additional stress onto the student. And then from the faculty perspective, there's also their concerns. But it has an implication on the students' finances, and especially if they don't withdraw, and they, you know, for that medical reason. So there's a lot of play that I think best practices might be useful, not only for advisors, but advisors mediating with PIs, or even for PIs. I don't know, other than childbirth accommodation policy, there isn't really a policy for like real rookie situations that I'm aware of, right? And I'm looking at Andrea because maybe she could correct me. She could say, yeah. Well, mainly like for GSRs, you know.
And I think it depends on what happens, depends on the funding source, and there's so many different funding sources, and okay. I would have to think about, that's really good thing to think about. Yeah. I would have to think about that and see who I can talk to about what that would look like. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I'll look into that. Thanks.
Okay, so before we move on, I wanted a clarification on something. Someone had said that you're not able to say what the different sources of income will count as in terms of taxable income. Is that right? Sort of what it qualifies as? Are you able to give advice on, you will get taxed on this bucket of income, but not this fellowship or this stipend? No, I'm seeing some nods. Okay. Sorry, that was just something I was confused on that the working group is considering. Okay, so we'll just move on, sorry. So the next thing we wanted to do was to see what your best practices are. For example, Eric had said that he emailed out a summary of people's income before they got to campus and brought in this workshop for tax assistance. So does anyone have anything they'd like to share to the group that they think would be really beneficial for other department students?
Came to talk to you.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to, this is sort of a question for everybody in general, because I can say something that doesn't work. I'm going somewhere with this. So we had a meeting, I think a month or so ago, where we were trying to get a direct line to the registrar's office. I don't know that ever, is it going? Okay, all right. So,
you know how much effort financial aid has had to put in?
Yeah, I know.
You got that survey, 27 of you immediately signed up, that's marvelous.
Right.
We will set a time and date, so it's going.
So my question comes out of a student who came to me and said, my student loans are still not being registered through the clearinghouse, and I got to start repaying soon or my credit's going to start dipping. So the thing to not do, in my experience, is tell them to go down and stand in line at Cal Student Central, because she said it was going to take her 3 hours. So don't just refer everybody to Cal Student Central, or ask them to submit a case. Ask them to submit a case electronically. Because it seems to be the answer for a lot of these things is send them to Cal Student Central. But there's all those undergrads who are doing that, but the grad students are like, I can't sit around for 3 hours and wait in line here. So
yeah, I mean,
that's my advice, is to
make a case
submit a ticket. Anyway.
We have an online question.
Oh. There is an online question.
So one of our viewers, Kate Chase, was wondering more about international students' taxes. I guess they understand U.S. citizens, but wanted to know more about international students.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that definitely that would have to be one of the focuses of a tax workshop, would be international students. So we will keep that in mind. Thank you for that input.
Okay.
And it sounds like the Berkeley International Office has some things
Yes.
so they should walk to your door and ask.
Cross-promoting would be a good idea.
Yeah, exactly.
If they're looking for it in one place, but it's offered in another place.
Cross-promote and share the information with you guys.
Great, yeah.
So I was hoping that people would be sort of asking each other questions and have some things to share. I guess it's kind of late in the meeting.
Right, and I guess part of our issue is that Larissa, who helped set this up, is on her way to a conference right now on graduate student life.
Okay.
So do you want any more information from the group? I feel like you wanted to hear some best practices, and we certainly heard some really good practice, but I think there's a lot more need and what we're all trying to say is there is so many disparate answers. There is no one form or document or practice or explanation. But if you want, I guess, what else can we provide to help you in your efforts to, I feel like we were able to give Claudia a fair amount of advice, but Tyler, what can we do for you?
Well, I think from talking with the work group that I'm in, which has students from several different departments, it was clear that we did have differing experiences in what our GSAOs provided. So some people will get things like a funding summary, which states your take-home income as well as your, everything before fee remissions and the like. and other people didn't get that. Some people have a harder time finding housing, and they'll ask for income verification. And so if you have a form, a template form that you can fill out for these students that says, here's what the student's income is for, you know, X number of years, that would be really helpful. In terms of what we need, it's, I mean, honestly, your support in this meeting has been really helpful. I can't think of anything that we could sort of draw from you and put on a website. I think we really have to work at these things at the department level. Rosia, did you have your hand?
Well, you know, I did one of my students, and no, I did not invite him here. Nothing to do with this. But, you know, I provide a funding summary, I do the income verification. I'm also a reference to students who are trying to get housing. They need a reference, right? So I usually verify their income. Even post-graduation, sometimes they're buying homes, and because of the, you know, the funding package, you know, HR doesn't have all the full picture of how much they made over the past 5 years. So to have the funding summaries, it really helps me to just put that together and send it to the student as a package for whatever reasons they're going to need post-graduation. That said, I do this all manually. I don't have a database. I'm not in a huge department. And then right now the resources on Cal Central are very limited. I think in terms of maybe advocacy, we could help us advisors by advocating for with the SIS system to really have a page that has all the financial information that a student needs to know about where they're receiving pay from, whether it's a GSI, GSR, student assistant, all the fellowships that they're receiving. It's something that they could even push a button and they could get a PDF of all the sources for that either semester, fiscal year, academic year. I mean, those things could be worked out, but wouldn't that be great? Then I wouldn't be typing all these letters for my 106 students. So, I mean, that's, I think, a way that we could help both. It could go both ways. It could help advisors, and then it could also help the students navigating, at least have a better picture of what's net, what's not net, right? Yeah.
And Andrea, I promise I didn't plant Rocio there because that sounds exactly like what we're talking about. That's what the work group was. We actually talked with SIS and thought that would be a great resource for you all. There were concerns about how you would input all this data because it seems to, you know, you have to digest everything and then upload it to Cal Central, and figuring out how that works with so many disparate sources of income would be really hard. If people are up for the challenge, then maybe we could figure it out, but I think we're also concerned about bandwidth for you all.
Isn't it supposed to all be connected? So HR would feed in, financial aid would feed in, all these things would feed in, so we wouldn't have to do it because the students' records would already be complete through the SIS system. Isn't that the point?
That was the promise.
Yeah.
Oh.
That was
We're looking for the promise.
And, you know, and there's no reason maybe in a few years we won't get to that promise. But it, like Tyler just said, it's a matter of bandwidth. Right now there are some really fundamental problems that we're working through, we as a campus. And then I expect we will get to some of these promises that we all believed where we have a one seamless confluence of information.
I was thinking that a more just tangible kind of building upon the SIS and the Cal Central system for grad students is my finance page is not very reader friendly. I have a lot of students coming to me just to figure out, okay, some things are in green, but they all say department award, like what is this for? And we spend a lot of time, or our office spends a lot of time just telling them why are you receiving this money and when, and why was some taxes taken out. So just the usability and readability of the SIS My Finances page would be like the first step in, so then the student could be, you know, literate in their own finances. So that in itself would be really helpful.
So I'll take those concerns to SIS. The GA is going to work with them to have sort of a docket of GA requests, and that could be on it, because that would certainly help us a great deal. So I guess we can move on, and just for the last few minutes, we wanted to talk about the way that we would go about administering workshops to different departments. So a lot of departments are fairly small, right? And it would be a significant amount of work to go to all of the different departments on campus, and so we're hoping to sort of coordinate efforts and have similar departments in terms of the funding levels and the funding sources to sort of jointly host a workshop. Does anyone jointly host things like orientation together? Yeah?
So MCB works with biophysics and neuroscience, and we do a lot of our orientation trainings and activities with them.
Okay. And any other of the humanities or social sciences that do this? I'll say those are the departments we're most interested in helping because that usually are funded less than MCB and other STEM programs.
We don't host orientations with another department, but just speaking on like logistically, what would be the most realistic way would be like on location, probably. Like political sciences and Barrows, but also is sociology. So having, you know, based on location rather than maybe functional field, because if they're on a different part of campus, that might be harder to bring everything together. So taking a look maybe to the locations of each department, even if they don't necessarily host things already together.
Okay. And so if we were to go about this, it'd be really helpful to sort of have these different groups so we could work out schedules, you know, find out when most of your students are in classes, agree on a joint location. To help us put that forward, what do you think are, and this I guess is an open question to Andrea as well, but what should our process be for picking these groups and figuring out what different departments have these similarities?
I was one, I'm Michelle from journalism, and perhaps you could send out a survey because we're a standalone, small department on the north side. We do our orientation all by ourselves, so I don't know who we would partner with, so maybe if you send out a survey and we could answer questions, that would help you, because we're definitely interested in that.
Okay.
Online question, I think.
There's a comment from somebody to Tyler from somebody.
Okay. So I would think a pre-meeting with the GSAOs to get a sense of what the funding sources are and what the funding structure of the particular department is. So that when you do meet with the students, you have kind of an idea of what you're walking into.
Okay, so in advance of every workshop, know the exact funding structure for all the students in the department. Yeah, I think that would be a really good thing to do. What was there was a comment for me?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's from viewer Joel Atlin. So I guess when talking with SIS, keep in mind that GSI salary info is not with SIS. That's an HR issue, which is another layer to the finance discussion.
Okay, that's good to keep in mind. Thanks. I'm mostly from a GSR department, so sometimes I overlook the GSI.
Gotcha. And also, someone else just commented, Kate Chase again, GSI and GSR are missing, also missing for admins. We used to be able to see a student's full GSR, GSI history and GLOW, but not the case for students with longer IDs and not updated regularly for others. Thanks, online viewer.
I think on the workshop idea, like I really like your idea of doing it kind of by like region or building, and for like general workshops, I think that doesn't have to do with, you know, like nitty gritty how you're being funded. I think, I mean, I don't want to, I mean, as myself as a GSAO, I would be willing to like take a lead as a GSAO in Evans Hall to say, I'll book a room, I'll make sure it's available, and I'll contact the other GSAOs in this building to say, hey, like, this workshop is available to your students too. So I think that it could also be an option if other GSAOs are, you know, if you had like one person per building or something to be a contact like that, like, I think I'd be happy to help with something like that.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, Larissa, when she gets back, can probably help you do that, some of that logistical connection.
Okay.
Just another suggestion, since people were commenting also sometimes students aren't able to join or have a conflict, if these workshops can be kind of like this one, if there's a streaming option and a way that people can ask questions, because I think the difference between like even a recorded video or tutorial in a workshop is that people can have their questions answered. So you might have better reach if there's a way that people who aren't able to physically be there can participate.
As awkward as this technology can be, it's still very helpful for people.
Yeah, it's great.
Who else would like to speak into the microphone?
So it sounds like we want a survey to see who would be benefited from different sets of workshops and who'd be willing to host for different buildings or for similarly funded departments. That sounds good. And we can have Larissa set that up. Okay. That's all of the, I think that's answers all of our questions.
Any more contributions or questions from the audience? Kate, Joel, or anyone else? Okay, well then you guys have bought back 27 minutes. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for your help. Appreciate it.
Thank you to our guests, to Claudia and Tyler, and to Kaylee who ducked out for class. And thanks for the great ideas, you guys.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Check. Oh, why is it working now?
What did you do? I turned it on too. I don't know either.
Well, now it's working.
Now it's working.
Of course.
I turned it on and I.
Hey.
It feels like it's a short in the on-off.
Hello. Okay, well, now it's working. Oh, well.